Stick with me as we go through my favorite craptastic and weird holiday specials. Number 3 is on here because it's definitely in the weird category. It's called The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus. Now, the reason it's on here is because if you were expecting like a Santa Claus happy special and you pick this movie up, you're going to be very surprised because it is another Rankin Bass claymation animated movie. But it was the last one they put out. I think it was like 86 or something when this came out. So they were kind of hit their peak of Christmas specials and were coming down and just putting out crap. But they put this one out, and it's based on, obviously there was a book written in I think it was like 1902, by the same guy that wrote Wizard of Oz. So everybody is still trying to wrestle with the mythos that is Santa. And they all have their different ideas about Santa. And this was his take on it. Now, if you put that aside, this is actually a really cool special and probably one of my very favorite that Rankin Bass ever did. But if you're expecting like a normal Christmas movie, you're going to be very surprised because let me paint this picture. It starts off with a bunch of immortals that are kind of like gods and lesser gods all meeting at a table, and they're deciding what to do with Santa. That Santa's finally come of age where he's going to die this year if they don't intervene and make him immortal. So first off, your kid's already going to be like, what's death? What do you mean he's going to die? Santa's going to die? You know, right off the bat, you're in this hot water. Then, so they're deciding this, and they give the backstory of how Santa came to be, that he was an orphan dumped in the woods, and that these immortals find him and give him to like a Linus to raise. And then Santa gets kidnapped by a fairy, and he gets raised as like her son. And there's a lot of confusion on how he's getting raised. And finally they say, okay, you're human. You need to see what humans do. And we're going to take you to the mortal world. And you can find out what's going on there. So they do tie in some Santa stuff. He goes to the mortal world, realizes that humans are jerks and treat kids bad. So he decides to be nice and start making toys. And the very first toy, guys ready for it? It was a cat. That's right. Santa was way ahead on the internet. The very first thing he makes is toy cats and gives them away to the kids. And of course, they're huge hits. So kudos on that. He saw the future coming. But that's where kind of Santa takes a break for a while and this other storyline takes off. That they're these evil creatures who are somehow tied into being demons. And they can turn invisible. And by the way, they look just like the orcs in The Hobbit. Yeah, really stretched yourself, Rankin Bass. Way to reuse characters. So they use these orcs, and they're constantly stealing the toys, so Santa can't do his job. Finally, the immortals decide they've had enough, and they want to help Santa. And they go to war with these orc characters. I think they're called Wagas. And they go to war with these guys. And mind you, this is a Christmas special, right? The main immortal, the woodsman, gets this magic silver axe, which ends up disintegrating, this like gargoyle thing that is attacking. And another, like one of the elves or pixies or something, uses like a stick, and this dragon's flying around shooting fire at her, and she just turns around and burns the dragon to death. And so the dragon lights on fire, and then they shrink one of them. Somehow they shrink one of the bad guys and like step on them. And so they're just murdering all the bad guys in this film. And then they go back to Santa and they're like, yeah, you're good to go. We killed everybody. And that's kind of how the movie ends. It's not really what you picture for a Christmas movie, because there's like people with axes that disintegrate people, and wow. But if you step back and you're not expecting a normal Christmas special, it's actually a really cool special, and probably I would say if you've never seen it, you should really go watch it. Just have that in mind before you start, that it's not a normal Christmas special and your kid's going to see things get killed. Oh boy, number 2, the Star Wars Holiday Special. Now, of course, you knew this was going to be on here, and you're probably surprised it's not number 1, but it's kind of been, so many people have talked about it and played it out that I couldn't give it number 1. Although it is probably the most craptastic movie ever made. Now, what happened is basically the first Star Wars comes out. It's a huge hit. George Lucas doesn't really understand what he has, and he sells the rights to allow some low-budget director to make a crappy Christmas special. And it is so bad and thrown together. I mean, you can't even describe how bad this movie is. All right, so the bottom line of this movie is that Chewbacca is going back to visit his family. And so they give Chewbacca a family member. He has a wife, Mala. He has a son, which they name Lumpy. Very Wookiee, right? Lumpy. and Chewbacca has his old dad there who is named Itchy. Like he's got lice problems or something. Itchy, really? So the whole series and the darkness that is Star Wars completely erased with this stupid, family there. And for the first 10 minutes of this movie, it is completely in Wookiee. So there's just grunts and rattles that these characters are talking, and there's no translation. It's just Wookiees going, and they're just doing this back and forth for 10 minutes. I mean, right out the bat, you're in trouble in this movie. And then what happens is they try to awkwardly work in all these guest stars they have. So, to keep Lumpy entertained, they watch this, holographic TV of a crappy circus and some singers. And then eventually, for some reason, Jefferson Starship is in there, I guess because their name's Starship. And Jefferson Starship does, a whole video in the middle of it. So the storyline just disappears completely. Not that there was much of one, but they just cram these random things in. Now there are 2 high points to this, if you can even say they're high points, is Bea Arthur, the lady from Golden Girls. She is the bartender in the cantina, and that's actually a little funny. And Harvey Korman plays multiple characters. Whenever they turn on the TV to keep the kid busy, he's doing something stupid in it. And he's actually kind of funny. What's crazy, though, is the actual characters from Star Wars show up, but I guess they didn't pay them that much because they only come in for 30 seconds to a minute. They make an appearance. Leia comes in and sings a terrible song. Luke, they call Luke, and he's in this horrible makeup. He looks orange. And then Han and Chewbacca show up. Finally, the whole thing is, where are they at? Where are they at? Chewie's going to miss... I'm sorry. I forgot a major plot point is they're coming home for something called Life Day, which is like Wookiee Christmas. So they're wondering where Han is for Life Day and Chewbacca because they're together. They finally show up and there's stormtroopers at Chewbacca's house. And Han pushes this stormtrooper off this, tree fort to his death. And it's like a Christmas special. So Han is throwing people off, this balcony to his death. It's like, Merry Christmas. And they just blow over that they killed these stormtroopers. And then they go on and, oh God, they all get together and some reason Princess Leia sings a song. And I just saved you a lot of time. Now, for a very long time, this movie was impossible to find. It was really hard to get because they only showed it once on TV. My understanding is the original copies were destroyed, and the only people that had it were people that had VCRs back in 1977 that actually recorded this thing. Maybe it was 79. I can't remember when this came out, but you're talking about in the 70s. They recorded this thing. So you're watching a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a VHS, and someone digitized it. So the quality is always crappy on this thing. It's really hard to even get decent pictures to show you. But George Lucas said this was the worst mistake he ever made, and he would destroy every copy if he could. And I understand why. So most likely, though, I bet you've probably seen part of this, and you can find clips of it on YouTube, but they're pretty fast at taking them down. It's hard to find. You probably have to use Kodi or something like that to watch this. And finally, my number one craptastic movie, Mystery Science Theater 3000, their version of Santa Claus. And that's the entire title. It's just Santa Claus. So what happened was in the this was made in the late 50s. I'm not positive about that, but they come out with a movie called Santa Claus. And it's made by a Mexican director. So it's super low budget. It's this Mexican film. And it is a Mexican slant on Santa Claus. So it's very Catholic oriented. There's some big differences in Santa mythology. Since this is Catholic oriented, Santa talks about Jesus all the time and he sets up a nativity scene. He also lives in a castle on a cloud, not at the North Pole. And he doesn't have elves, he just has an army of slave children that do all of his bidding. The plot for this Christmas movie is pretty different than other Christmas movies. Santa fights the devil. So actually it's not the devil, it's one of the devil's minions named Pitch, like Pitchfork. This all starts out when Santa accidentally lights some sort of firework that summons a devil. The devils appear in hell and start dancing because apparently they like to dance in tights. And they do a big musical number that's very reminiscent of Staying Alive. And then Lucifer starts yelling at this devil, Pitch. He commands Pitch to go up to the earth and get children to do bad things. If not, he threatens Pitch that he'll feed him ice cream and chocolate, which apparently hurts demons, and then Pitch begs him for forgiveness and tells him he's lactose intolerant and couldn't handle that torture. That's really the plot. I'm not making this up. And Pitch pops up in this video over and over and over and tries to convince little kids to do bad. You know, this guy's like in a leotard and horns and crappy makeup. He goes around. But the movie actually starts with Santa Claus singing. So Santa has like this organ, and he's playing it, and he's making all these weird faces on it. And a country will appear. It'll say like Japan. And these little kids will come out, and they'll sing some Japanese song, and they're all dressed up in Japanese clothes. And what happens, I guess they ran out of kids, and they're filming it in Mexico, so these are Mexican kids. And they just recycle them. So like there's like an African one where they paint them black, and there's like Mexican kids that are supposed to be Japanese and Chinese. And it's just terribly, terribly done, and it's torturous to watch. It is so torturous. You're like, holy crap, I can't believe these songs are still going on, because it's like 10 to 15 minutes of the opening of the movie. I mean, it just keeps going. And you're like, surely they're going to stop. And they spent all their money like on this one set. They got to use this set, and they keep coming up with all these countries for these little kids to sing. And it is so bad. It's like Santa's little slave children that he's captured and makes them sing, because they don't look like they're having a good time in the movie. They're all, they all have frowns on their face. I wish I knew the whole story of how this was made, but I bet it was a good story. Let me give you a better idea of what I mean. Santa has a magic workshop that has these magic machines, and this machine can hear, can see, and it can spy on children. Although it's a pretty damn creepy machine. It looks like some sort of oral pleasure device that you would see in Japan. The other thing is it has an all-watching eye, like the Eye of Sauron, that watches children to tell if they're good or bad. And they can hear everything you say as well. Although this is just an ear taped to an oscillating fan, I'm pretty sure. So high special effects. What's different here, too, is Santa doesn't have real reindeer. They're mechanical reindeer that he has to wind up with a key. And the reindeer come to life, and they're very creepy. I mean, look, there's pentagrams in the background. I mean, what does that tell you? They come to life, and they just start laughing maniacally. And it's a scary scene for a kid. And, of course, it's super high special effects, right? wait till you watch this crappy movie. It's terrible. So anyway, the movie goes on, and you have to watch again the Mystery Science Theater version of this, because although I saw the original when I was a kid, it's not even as funny without the commentary. Mystery Science Theater makes this so funny. And what's great is it's all over YouTube. I'll link it to what I can find out there, but YouTube's always taking stuff down. So hopefully it's here. If not, every once in a while it appears on Netflix. There's some minor subplots. There's a rich kid who really wants his parents to be home for Christmas Eve, but they went out partying. So Santa shows up and slips them some sort of roofie or some sort of Bill Cosby drug and gets them to remember that, oh yeah, we have a kid at home. And they go home. They also throw in another plot line. Why not? The devil also steals Santa's magic flower that lets Santa become invisible and sneak around. So now everybody can see him. And then he steals his bag of sleep powder that he uses to keep little kids asleep when he sneaks in their house. Pitch then lets a dog loose, which chases Santa up a tree. And since Santa can't turn invisible anymore, he's worried that everyone will see him and he'll be exposed. Pitch wants to expose Santa, so he appears to this sleeping couple, whispers in their ear, and tells them there's a man outside in a tree who wants to murder them. The couple then pulls out a gun and argues about which one of them will be the one to murder Santa. Nothing says holiday Christmas special like talking about murdering Santa, so you think there's no way out of this, and Santa's going to get exposed. But in the last 2 minutes of the movie, they introduce a whole new character, Merlin, who's in Santa's workshop, and Merlin saves the day and saves Santa. So, total sloppy writing. It's like, how did we get Santa out of this? Well, you know what? Let's just bring Merlin in. So if you're looking for a Christmas special that has Jesus, Santa, Merlin, and the devil, then this one's for you. So in the end, it was really lazy writing that saved Christmas. Now, the end of this... oh, God. The end of this movie is... Pitch is trying to convince this girl, Lupita, to steal a doll she really wants because she's poor. And they remind you she's poor, like... Every 10 minutes, they talk about how poor she is. And it's really, really not ethical at all. It's like, you poor little kid, And she doesn't steal the doll, so Santa rewards her by getting the doll. So that's pretty much the entire plot. Except one last thing. Santa still has to get back to his castle in time before the sun rises, or like vampires, his mechanical deer will just turn to dust and fall apart, and Santa will get trapped on Earth and starve to death. I'm not making this up. That's the real plot line. This movie, it is painful and it limps along in so many places, but it's so entertaining. If you just go into this knowing that it's so bad, that you will have a great time watching this. So I hope it's probably something you've never ever seen and very few people have. I hope you'll go check out my number one because it's terrible. Also, check out all my holiday stories. I put them in a playlist that this is in. So you should be seeing it right now. There's some other holiday stories I've done. Enjoy those. Anyway, Merry Christmas. Enjoy the holidays.